好，可以的。
Okay, hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about Harlem Resonance and a famous novel called Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora. First, I will introduce Harlem Resonance. So, the Harlem Resonance is a new Negro movement that took place shortly after World War One and lasted into the mid 1930s. It was one of the richest, most vibrant, and most culturally generative artistic period of American history. And the work that emerged from this period continued to shape the landscape of American art and letters today. So, the key features of the Horan resonance are these. There are three main features. First, it celebrated African American culture and identity. People began to feel proud about their own heritage and wanted to express it through art and literature. Second, there was a rapid growth of literature, music, and art, and also jazz music. Jazz music, in particular, became very popular and spread across the entire United States. Third, it was also a response to racism and discrimination. Many artists use their work to challenge unfair treatment and to demand equality. So overall, the Holland Resonance was not only about art, but also about social changes. Now I'm moving on to the important figure of the Holland Resonance. Some important figures of this movement include Langoston Hughes, Claude McKay, and Zora Neale Hurston. Langston Hughes was a famous poet who wrote about everyday black life struggle and their dreams. Claude McKay was a writer who spoke strongly against racism and injustice. Zora Neale Hurston, who I will be focusing on today, was both a writer and an anthropologist. She studied African American culture and included it in her literary works. This figure helped shape the Harlem Renaissance and continue to influence the future generation. So now I'm going to talk about Zora. Zora Neale Hurston was an African American author. She was especially interested in black culture, folklore, and tradition. She spent time collecting stories and studied how people spoke in everyday life. One special thing about her writing is that she used a real dialect, or the way people actually speak. Uh, sorry. This make her story feel more authentic and realistic and more relatable. Although she was not fully appreciated during her lifetime, today she is considered one of the most important writers of Holland Resonance. Now I'm going to talk about her work. Their eyes were watching God. Her most famous novel is this, Their Eyes Were Watching God, which was published in 1937. The novel is now considered a classic American literature. The story focuses on a black woman's journey to find her identity, her voice, and her own independence. What makes this novel special is that it centers on a woman's personal growth, which was not very common at that time period. Now I'm going to move on to the main characters. The main character of the novel is Jenny Crawford. Jenny is strong and independent woman who wants to experience true love and live the life on her own terms. At the beginning of the story, she does not have much control over her own life, but as the story progresses, she became more confident and more self-aware. Her journey is about discovering who she really is. Now, I'm going to move on to the theme of this book. There are several important things in this novel. First is identity. Janie is trying to understand who she is and what she really wants in life. Second is love and relationship. She experienced different kind of love and not all of them are healthy or fulfilling to her. Third is independence. Over time, she learns to make her own decision instead of following others' footsteps. Finally, voice and freedom are very important things. Jenny wants to express herself and not to be controlled by society or other people. These things make the story meaningful and relatable to even today. Now, I'm going to overview the plot. In the story, Jenny goes through three marriages. Each marriage represents a different stage in her life and teaches her important lessons. In her early relationship, she feels controlled and unhappy, but later, she finds a relationship that brings her closer to happiness and self-understanding. By the end of the novel, Jenny becomes independent and confident. She understands her own value and identity. Now, I'm going to talk about the key points. There are a few key points to remember about in this novel. First, Hurston uses black dialect, which makes the story feel realistic and connected to real life, which makes it more relatable to every one of us. Second, the novel focuses on female empowerment. It shows how women can grow stronger and more independent. Third, it highlights the struggle of black women in the early 20th century, including both racism and gender inequality. This element makes the novel powerful and unique. Now I'm going to talk about the symbol. One important symbol in the novel is horizon. Horizon represents dreams, hope, and freedom. For Jenny, the horizon symbolizes her goal and the life she wants to achieve. As she grows and changes, her understanding of the horizon also began to change. So, in conclusion, the Harlem Resonance was an important cultural movement that gave African American a voice to help and shape modern culture. Zora Neale Hurston novels show a powerful journey of self-discovery, especially for women. Their eyes were watching God is still important today because it explores identity, love, and freedom. That would be my introduction of this book and the author. Now I will move on to my other group member. Okay, you can go ahead now.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about the importance of the literary work in African American literature. When we look at their eyes were watching God, we can see that it reshapes African American literature by shifting the focus. Instead of only talking about racial suffering, Zora Neale Hurston centers a Black woman's inner life, her voice, her desire, and her search for identity. At the same time, the novel brings in female experience as another layer, showing that freedom is shaped not only by race but also by gender. Through this, Hurston expands what Black literature can be. However, this perspective was not immediately accepted. When the novel was first published, it was criticized for not being political enough, and it was eventually forgotten. It was not until Alice Walker rediscovered Hurston in the 1970s that the novel gained recognition again. Walker helped bring her work back to literature literary discussion and reframed it as essential to Black women's writing. This shows that what we value in literature can change, and sometimes powerful voices are only heard much later. Turning to gender and racial issues, Hurston uses Jenny's three marriages to illustrate the various ways male dominance can stifle a woman's voice and identity. However, Jenny's story isn't just about the struggle against men. It's a profound exploration of Black community life. Hurston intentionally shifts the focus away from traditional Black vs. White vs. Black conflict to showcase the internal social structures and rich emotional depth within African American society, providing that Black literature doesn't always have to center on racism to be powerful. So, in conclusion, in African American literature, freedom is not presented as something given. It is something earned through struggle, loss, and self realization. In the novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, Jenny's journey shows that not only the cost of freedom, more than that, gaining a voice and independence often requires leaving behind comfort, stability, and even love. Each step toward freedom comes with a price: isolation, hardship, and difficult choices that test her strength. Through this novel, Zora Neale Hurston suggests that the cost of not pursuing freedom is even greater. By the end, though Jenny achieves a sense of inner peace, not because her life becomes easier, but because she finally lives on her own terms. Female issues add another layer of complexity to the novel, showing that African American struggle is shaped not only by race, but also by gender. Thank you for listening, and that's our presentation. Thank you.